Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have Mr. Andrew Lucas with the Deal Finders Club.
What's up, Ricardo?
Andrew and I have been friends for quite a while now. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to hang out for a little bit.
My pleasure, man. Tell me, brother, I know you, but maybe some of the people listening or watching this video don't know who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I would venture to guess that most of them don't know who I am. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a 30-second intro. I'm Andrew in Columbia, South Carolina. My wife and I have been real estate entrepreneurs full-time since 2018. Our first house purchase was 2007, and it was really dumb, done very poorly, didn't know what we were doing, but it was 2007, so they gave us a house and a loan. That was actually right before I met Michelle, but I had that house and had some roommates help pay for it, and then started renting it out about 10 months later, and thus began the introduction to real estate and try to figure out how it all worked. Fast forward 2015-ish, Michelle and I, we had 4 rental houses that were very much by accident. You know, the accidental landlord didn't really do very well with the numbers. And we had 2 kids, one on the way, and made the decision that it was either get out of real estate because we're not doing it right, or learn from some people, get some coaches, get some books, learn how to do this and make a business out of it. We thankfully chose that choice and began flipping properties to buy rentals to eventually quote retire from the 9-to-5, and that happened in 2018. And now we have a home buying business, home flipping business. We teach people how to do it. We have a property management business and the retail broker team. So that's what it looks like now.
What about before? So tell me about before. Like, where did you grow up in Columbus, or is that where you're from originally?
Yeah, Columbia, South Carolina.
Columbia.
Yeah, so I grew up here. I've only lived away for like 2 years right after college, and was brought right back, but ended up going to college here. Any of those Gamecock fans were right here. So I haven't gone far, and which is nice. I think I'm very blessed to be here at this time because Columbia, South Carolina is a very, very, it has been for a long time, underrated real estate market, but we're starting to hit the headlines. People are looking at us a little harder now because of our affordability and the demands for housing people, businesses and colleges and state government. So we're in a really good market, and I'm just blessed to be here.
What do you do after college?
So I went into hospitality management. I used to manage hotels. Mm-hmm.
And your wife was in hospitality as well, right?
She was in insurance. She
sold
insurance. Yeah.
I don't know why I had it backwards. I thought she was in hospitality. I'm a Marriott guy, and I know one of you worked at Marriott, right? Was that you?
That was me. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. I thought it was your wife.
You had it backwards. Probably because she is much more hospitable than I am, She probably fits the mold better.
That's funny, man. So how do you get into hospitality? Like, what got you into it? Was it your degree or?
Well, yeah. My first job in high school was at a golf club. So I was the cart boy, and that just kind of shaped me. I did that for 3 years. Man, it was tough work, but rewarding. And I was just kind of a service-oriented person, and went to college for the old business management degree, and I took some entrepreneur classes and stuff. And it was so up in the air. And then I took an economics. It was one semester I had to do like advanced economics and then accounting. And I was like, gosh, I like numbers, but there's absolutely no way I could do this my whole life. I can't sit in a desk at a cubicle in an office and crunch numbers all day. So that's when I went and looked at the hospitality school, which is highly rated where we are. And I had worked at restaurants, just kind of to have a job in college,
Right,
and so
right.
that's what
Pay
got me
bills.
over there. And again, very lucky, at the right place. We had a hotel being built, so I got to be a part of that. I got to work at a hotel being built, get started from ground up, and then go to my next job right out of college, which was to manage a hotel that was being built. So that's what got me into the construction side of real estate. So that was kind of it. And I did that. I did hotel management through 2018.
Good deal. So, but you started doing real estate in 2007, which means by the time you transition from a W 2 job in the corporate world, you already had enough experience in real estate to where you say, you know what, man, I've already been doing this for a while. Can you talk to me about that transition? Like how you guys, both you and your wife, said, because you had lost money and you had lost also, um, like you had some deals that weren't slam dunks, right?
Right.
Like you were learning the hard way. That's how you started, basically. Like, hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the transition was a purposeful decision. We set parameters and goals and numbers. When we first got into real estate, none of that, we didn't have any of that, right? It was
yeah,
just,
your job was like, I want to buy a house and be an
yeah,
investor, right? And
yeah,
then
yeah.
that's about it,
With
right?
didn't know how to run numbers, didn't know what, at the end of the day, what it looked like. Really, the thing that convinced me to buy those early ones was I said, it doesn't matter what happens today, but in 30 years, the debt will be paid off by the tenant, and then that's retirement. I was
That's the
20.
Robert Kiyosaki,
Yeah.
rich dad, poor dad teaching. Like, hey, don't worry about it right now. In 30 years, this thing is gonna be worth 3 or 4 times what it's worth today. So,
Yeah, which is fine, but it got to
hey,
be
nothing
where,
wrong with that, Andrew. I
yeah,
did the same thing.
yeah.
I actually am talking to you right now. I started in 2008. You started in 2007. So you got a year on me in on experience.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's not there's nothing wrong with that, but what ended up happening is my career path. So in hospitality, if you kind of get to a place where you manage the hotels, but then to grow, you have to manage multiple, or you have to travel, move up to like a corporate level. In our town, there wasn't very many big hotels where I could grow. I was kind of at the top hotel in town. So in order to grow, it meant moving, traveling, something else. And Michelle and I, with the young kids, that just wasn't what we wanted. And so that's when we said, you know what, this real estate thing over here, our conversation was basically like, I heard you can actually make money with this. I know we're not doing it now. Like, I know we don't know what we're doing now, but I heard this is possible. And so that's how we got connected. Hired some coaches, read a couple books. Robert
can
Kiyosaki.
can you tell us what coaches or what school? Like, I'm okay with disclosing those things, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
obviously
yeah,
you learned the right way. Now look at you now, right? You're coaching
yeah,
other people. You have a real estate business, right? So
yeah. Yeah, so the book that one of our agents gave us was called Hold. It's the yellow one. I know it'd be right there. So it's this one here, and it's really I didn't read a whole bunch of books in college, but this has got big letters in it. It's easy to read, pictures and all that. So that's what showed us how to make money, how to run the math to actually buy a rental to allow us to have money monthly coming from it, not us putting into it.
right,
And so we did that. And then here in South Carolina, we have a great coaching group. It's called Clear Vision. And so we hooked up with them, and there's a couple of coaches within there, Kelly, Russ, and Dusty, great people. Got connected with them, and they helped us get started. And then our friend Tom Curl, who
or
with Wholesaling Inc. That was kind of the launch pad into going out on our own. So we had the rental properties, we knew how to flip, but then for me to leave my day job, I really needed an active income. Like passive income's okay, but it takes a long time to,
to build.
make a income from that. So we went wholesaling in 2018 when I left my day job. So those coaches all the way, and then some. We still have coaches and mentors today. Some people,
Right.
um, Tom included, that help us to this day. Like I don't think you will ever be in a place that you can't learn from someone else that's already been there.
I love that. So And shout out to all the coaches you've had, and they've all had an impact in your life, positive ones, and
Yeah.
including Tom. I know him personally, so I also look for coaches. Like coaching to me, you know, today, in the past, like I think I was all the way until 2017. I didn't have a coach.
Mm.
I was just winging it. And don't get me wrong, I was doing a lot of self study. Like I will get on YouTube or buy books, and maybe watch a some sort of seminar or something like that, and I will get the formulas out of it. Like I
Yeah.
remember I bought a book from a guy that was flipping houses. His name is Armando Montelongo. He had a
Yeah.
TV
Yeah.
show, right? So I bought his book, and that's where I learned the 70% rule.
Yeah.
He talked about it on the book, and at the time when I read that book, this is probably in 2006 or seven. I was just barely getting interested into real estate,
Yeah.
and I would look at properties on the MLS, and none of them would fit the bill. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how do you find these 70% deals? Like, they're not on the MLS, right? And he will say they're off market and this and that, but I really didn't understand what off market meant.
Yeah.
Like, how do you find an off market property? Like how you need an agent for that or something, like
Yeah.
all this ignorance, right? So, um, finally, like a year later, I found out about wholesalers, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta talk to the wholesalers.
Yeah.
These are the guys that got those 70% minus repairs deals, right? And
Yeah.
that's when I went and bought my first property towards the end of 2008. Um, and
So
even though,
you got started a lot smarter than I did, I'll tell you that.
well, I just honestly, I just didn't know anything. Like
Yeah.
I just the only real estate I bought before that was my own house.
Hmm.
Like, and I bought that retail. Even though it was a foreclosure from a builder,
Hmm.
because this is 2008, is the meltdown is happening. Like the
Yep.
world is ending, right? I bought it foreclosure, and I thought I got a good deal out of it. Um, and I even look, my agent didn't even guide me the right way. The property was on the market for 205,000. Okay,
Yeah.
and it was a foreclosure. We knew it.
Yeah.
And I went to her and I said, "Look, I really want this property. I want to offer 210,000, five over asking. That way, I can get it for us because we love the house. It was a brand new home built
Yeah.
with like all the upgrades that never been lived in. The foreclosure, the builder happened to go under, so she could have told me like, you don't have to do that. Like, offer less because these guys are in a bind. They don't have any more offers. She could have told me that, right? That's what I would do if I was your agent. And she just went and submitted the offer, and it got approved. And then I'm like, I wonder if I overpay for this thing, So,
Yeah.
you know, long story short, we really wanted it, and we didn't care the $5,000 extra. But that was the only real estate experience that I had before, buying this one particular rental that I kept for like 4 years afterwards. Because I was an accidental landlord, like I guess like you, because I
Yeah.
couldn't get rid of it. So I was like, might as well let's get it rented, right? So,
Yeah.
um, all right. So you set the goals with your wife, and you said, all right, we need to get some active income coming up. We're gonna sign up for some coaching.
Hmm.
When did you feel that you were ready, like to make that leap of faith?
To quit
Job,
the
yeah,
full time job.
job.
Yeah. So
That's
we
hard,
had again. It
brother. I'm gonna tell you something, man. I couldn't do that. I got laid off, and when I got laid off, I'll say, you know what, man? I boom. I mean, like, okay, now I need to go do something else.
yeah.
I felt like I had the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I tell you this, it was very much, I think God's timing put it all together for us because we put the math together, and the goal was 2015. We said, okay, our oldest son is going to public school. He'll leave daycare, which is, a big, big help on the paycheck. And my wife was like, she wanted to be able to pick him up from school. That was just kind of a thing, she wanted to be able to do that. So we said, okay, well, we got like 2.5 years or so. Let's figure this out. how much do we need to replace your income? And so from, she was making almost six figures, somewhere in the 90s or whatever, but you take all the taxes out and it's something like 60,000 is what our goal was. And so we put that together at $200 per door. Cash flow is what we factored in after buying the house, and the BRRRR strategy, of course, which we didn't know the BRRRR, bigger pockets, I don't think was around yet, but maybe. So anyway, we were buying them and refinancing the house, and we would get $200 per door per month. So we said, well, if we can get to 30, that's it. So we set the goals, set the sights, buy a house, flip it, and buy a rental, refinance out of that rental, and do it again. So we got to 34 rental properties by August of 2018, which was the goal. What changed along the way is that my hotel, the hotel I was managing, went up for sale. And with a sale means the new owner is going to change everything, going to renovate the hotel, going to essentially make me work, right? And
Yeah.
so I'd gotten real comfortable to being able to do, because I was doing all this flipping and all this real estate
Well, you had a
building while I had a job. So it was before work, at lunch, and after work. And the only way to do that was because I had a great team at the hotel and had great bosses and managers that, they could manage it, and my brain space could be diverted, right? Probably
right.
not best as an employee, but our hotel was doing amazing. So,
Yeah.
the numbers are okay. But then a new owner is coming, and so my wife, Michelle, the smart one that she is, she said, you know what? You should quit. You should leave the hotel because you have all this real estate knowledge. And she basically said that I would be able to build it faster, and then she could come and retire, from her job soon. And that was all fine and dandy. Then we learned about wholesaling. So we did all that without wholesaling. It's the weirdest thing to say, but 2017, I didn't know what wholesaling was. 2018, I figured it out from one of my coaches. Said, "Hey, you ever heard of wholesaling?" Started listening, learning, hired Wholesaling Inc. to teach me that. And so 2018 began wholesaling, and we got off to incredible success. And Michelle was able to quit her job in 2018. So we both left the same year within a few months of each other.
That's amazing. So, what do you think equity wise you had on those 34 properties when you quit?
So back then, before this is pre-COVID, we were doing the BRRRR to the max, right? So we would get
So, you had
70
20% equity on each deal.
yeah, basically 75. So I guess 20 to 25% equity on each deal. So it was pretty heavy leverage. And then we learned in COVID, I said, when the government said that they didn't have to pay the rent, it was like, it's optional. That was a little bit of a gut check, right? That'll make you pucker up. And that's when we said, no, we can't do that. No more fully leveraged BRRRR, and it's time to pay down and get some more equity. Yeah.
Right. Um, Now, will you say that you had over $1 million in equity in those 34 properties or less?
I haven't gone back to look, but if it's 34 average, yeah, probably close, probably
I
750.
ran the math while you were talking.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
said, all right, so let's suppose he had 34 properties, and I just made an average of $35,000 on
yeah.
equity per deal, right?
That sounds, yeah,
Um, Now, I'm assuming these are maybe houses that are worth 150 grand, 200 grand, the max, or something along those
yep,
lines. If they're worth 200, now you got 40 to 50 to 60 on those, right? But
yeah,
let's suppose these are the blue collar houses that you can rent for $1,500 a month, $1,300 a month. They're easy to rent, in
hmm,
and out. I ran the math, and you probably had $1 million in there, right?
probably.
Which is very interesting because in the books that makes you a millionaire.
Yeah,
It does, it
it
does, but
does.
you never see yourself as one
Yeah,
because you're like, well, I don't have $1 million in the bank account,
yeah,
or
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't have it liquid.
yeah,
Maybe you got, I don't know, $500 in your checking account, but yet you still got a million in equity.
yeah.
And it's funny because hey, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've had money, and I've had times where there's no money, and there are times where you got a lot of equity and very little money. So that I read a book one time, and I guess you and your wife fit this category, okay?
Uh-huh.
And not today, because today is different, but back then,
Hmm.
you were what I call the millionaire next door,
Hmm.
which is a book actually for anybody that's out there. You should read it at least once in a lifetime, by Thomas James Stanley, and he unfortunately he passed away. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. I remember when I first picked up that book, Andrew, and I understood what a millionaire next door was. A millionaire next door is not the guy driving the Mercedes Benz with a Rolex watch, you know, with a suit and a tie in the big office. The millionaire next door is the regular guy that has a job, a W-2, that
Yeah.
systematically puts money away and systematically puts that money that he puts away into investments, whether it's stocks or real estate or whatever investments, right? Um, you were able to do that by having a W-2 job in between you and your wife. You started investing in real estate. What were you putting 20% down at the beginning on properties?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, for the stuff we would hold. Yes, I think we had to do 20% down. We would use some private money would helped us get
Right.
going. But yeah.
Yeah. So at the beginning, it was 20% down, get the
Hmm.
loan, buy the property, put a tenant in. You talked about a very conservative number, which is $200 per door, like cash flow.
Hmm.
Even in 2008, I was making 400 per door.
Yeah.
If I didn't make 350 or more, I didn't want to touch it.
Yeah, and that number was 200 was making sure we had maintenance, covered and that kind of thing. So we probably brought in more each month, but
Okay,
for
but
us
that
to
was your
run the
net.
math and to make sure extras were covered and running the math with like a 5 or 6% vacancy rate, right? So it probably monthly actually came in more, but the goals that we set use those uh, the parameters of saying, hey, we will set aside money for vacancies and maintenance and that sort of thing.
That was your matrix, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, Now, fast forward. So, hey, you became rich. You didn't even know it, like because I bet you didn't know it. Look, man, it happened to me. I went to the bank one time with one of my partners, and the banker, like, we're asking for at the time there were none of these DSCR loans or none of that. We only had what they call blanket loans. Especially after you had maxed out your Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans, right?
Hmm.
And we had 100 plus properties on our hands.
Hmm.
So we go to the bank, and Jose and I are talking to the banker, and the banker brings our balance sheet. And now we're both employees, like we're both working for corporations.
Yeah.
We're having lunch with this guy to see how we can go and put all these houses on other types of loans. Um, and the guy goes, "You guys are worth X amount of millions of dollars each." Jose's eyes got this big. He looked at me and he's like he's looking at me with disbelief,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at him like, well, I don't know what this guy is talking about
Yeah.
being rich, right?
That's not me.
Yeah, like we don't get me wrong, we had a high income, but we both made multiple six figures. Probably, I don't know. At the time, he was probably making 160, and I was probably bringing 200 grand a year, which is it put us on the 1% category.
Sure.
I'm talking about 2012, 11, somewhere around that time, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we had all this real estate, but we never thought we were rich. We're like, we're just doing all this business, right? Um, and we looked at him, and his name is Clarence. I told him, I said, Clarence, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Look at my checking account. like, like you have our accounts, like we don't
Yeah.
have that kind of money. He's like, no, you actually do. You got it on equity. If you were to liquidate all these assets that you have, guess what? You guys are collecting a big chunk of change. So it was
Wow.
kind of like a big wake up call for us at the time.
Yeah.
But we did it like you. We did it with a job. Now we were a little bit faster because we it was more of us together with a single purpose, which is what you did with your wife.
Yeah.
I did it with my partners, right?
Hmm.
So, but now fast forward to 2018, you quit your job
Hmm.
in your first day as a full-time real estate investor. What does that look like?
It was interesting. It was a really odd day. I feel
It
like.
is weird,
Right?
man. I know
It's
what you're
weird.
talking about.
Uh, so it was October 27th, 2018 was the closing date of that hotel. So when it sold, everybody knew, we told them in like February, like, hey, when it sells, when y'all finally sign the paperwork, like I'm done. I'm not coming back. So that was the closing date. And I was like, hey, do y'all want me to come back to help, get everything going? They're like, no, we're good because we planned for it. And I was like, oh, so I don't come here on Monday? Like, what am I doing? So, yeah, that was the day before that, I guess. Really, I packed my stuff up, did the moonwalk out the front door, and that was it. And it was very surreal. But what I did do is I had direct mail set to go out that day, so well, the day before, so that phone calls should be coming in on that week, which panned out. The phone calls started probably like Tuesday, Wednesday, and I kid you not, we had a deal uh, that was signed the week after. So one of the very first postcard drop got us a deal through. Uh, uh, Motivated seller. They wanted to sell. It was two partners. They're like, we're done. I said, okay, we'll do it. And we ended up making like a $20,000 deal the very first mail drop, the very first week. I was like, okay, we can do this business. It's go time.
Wow, that's I don't know. That's probably a lot more money than you were bringing in the whole month as a full-time employee, right? Like,
Absolutely. And that is where that happened, not just once, but a few times in that very first month or two. And that's where we said, okay, Michelle, I actually can be a wholesaler. I actually can create active income. You can retire on the rental property portfolio. That's still there and that can still pay us. And I'm going to go make my own money, not my own money. I'm going
yeah,
to
yeah, you're
replace
gonna
what
create
my
active
W 2
income
was.
wholesale.
Yeah, I'm going to replace that with the wholesale activity. And she was able to leave her job that in December or January.
I think it was somewhere around the same time we were dealing with a hurricane in Houston that came in 2017, and I up to that point I had only done rentals and fix and flipping, but I hadn't done wholesaling, and I had maybe wholesale 3 or 4 properties to my friends. That because we learned how to acquire properties somewhere around 2014, 15 through bigger pockets actually.
Okay, so it was
Like,
around.
yeah, they were around. So,
Yeah.
and I was like a platinum member or whatever. So I would get on the blogs because Dennis, my old business partner, my brother from another mother, he said, "Hey man, we need to get on bigger pockets because if we want to send mailers, they got all the cues and all the things that we need to do on our letters." And I'm like, bigger pockets, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
I had no idea. He had been on bigger pockets forever. So we got on bigger pockets. We started reading, and I'm like, wait a minute, you just because up to that point, I had only bought properties from wholesalers.
Mm,
And he's like, we need to do what wholesalers do to cut out the middleman. And I
right.
was like, enlighten me because I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how. I only knew about wholesalers putting bandit signs, and that's something I really didn't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't want to do bandit signs. But when he taught me about letters, I was like, so what? We go on a place like PropStream and pull a list, and we convert that list and skip tracer or whatever, and then we send the letters out. And he's like, yeah, man. And then they start calling you, and I was like, why is somebody gonna call somebody from a postcard or a letter?
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, right? So I went and we tried it in a place where we had one house. We had just purchased a house, a property there. And man, that phone was ringing off the hook because we targeted an area that wasn't in the metro area. It was like it was like 30 to 45 minutes away from the city.
Hmm.
It's called Angleton, Texas. And Angleton is south of Houston, but it's not part of the Houston metro. It's kind of like its own little town. but we liked it because it was in the middle of refineries and there was a lot of blue collar. So
Yeah.
we knew rents were going to be higher there, and it wasn't because we knew the rents were higher. We only assumed because we couldn't find the data to support it.
Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't out there.
But they weren't out there. They were not on the MLS. We couldn't. They had their own little MLS, and we didn't know it existed. And man, we started buying properties in that little town, brother. And next thing you know, a house that in Houston will rent for 1,200 a month, out there will rent for 1,700.
Wow.
But guess what? We're still buying them
For
for
less.
40, 50, 60 grand, like
Yeah.
like 30, 40 cents on the dollar. And we thought we found hot water. Like, oh my God, we like this is the best thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
Um, so we sent that mailers. That was thanks to Bigger Pocket, and then we started learning more about mailers, and we got so good at it that we started selling yellow letters to other people,
Oh, wow.
and we NLP the letters. Like we put words in bold. That way, if they scan the letter, it will go to their subconscious mind. That's how much we got into it.
Yeah.
Like if I look at your letter and I scan it, I don't read it.
Right.
What's going to catch my attention? And I knew by NLP, neuro linguistics programming, you can embed messages on the letter to where if you scan it, it goes right on the subconscious mind. And our letters, like we'll go to appointments and the people will say like, man, I don't know why I call you because I get hundreds of letters. And Dennis and I would just look at each other and we're like,
I know
yeah,
why.
it works. Like, and we tell them, hey, I'm gonna tell you why you called us. It's because of this word, this word, this word. You scanned it, it caught your attention, and now you're giving us a call. And the guy was
Yeah.
like, I guess you're right. And we ended up buying the property.
Yeah.
So you were doing mailers.
Yep.
When did you introduce another type of marketing?
So we started with the mailers, right out the gate. And I'll tell you, you said you only bought from wholesalers, and this is just how specific markets are. And when real estate is very much macro, there's trends, big trends, but then you really got to get and see what your market is. You were just talking about how different yours was from Houston. It's right next door. Well, everything that we bought up until we started really wholesaling was from the MLS or word of mouth. Somebody brought it to us. No wholesalers. So when we started throwing the wholesale postcards out, I I just think that there wasn't very many here. I know that there were, but they just weren't as like committed to throwing all of these postcards out. So we just were hitting the market hard. So we got a lot of response from postcards, especially early on. And before I quit, I had done a website using Carrot, created an amazing website, had somebody use SEO, search engine optimization throughout the site, really kind of dialed it in. That was in July, so I just let that keep running. It didn't do any ads or anything, but it was just postcards and postcards and postcards. And then the website would just kind of pick itself up. We didn't actually pay for another type of advertising until we went, I believe we went on TV next. I'm pretty sure either TV or we did some Google pay per click. And that would have been
That's a
not
big
until,
jump.
yeah, neither one of those would have been until 2020 or 2021. So we
Okay.
stayed postcards just full steam ahead for at least 2 to 3 years.
Because for me, we stayed on yellow letters and actually specifically yellow letters. I bought a machine for postcards out of China for like $900. It got shipped to my office, and we were chopping these postcards. But I would test both, and yellow letters were always the winner. And at one point, I was selling postcards because we created a mailing company actually out of it, and
Yeah.
we were selling to other wholesalers and real estate investors. But I knew that my cost to produce a letter was the same to produce a postcard. It was the same.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
would use less paper, but at the end of the day, okay, how much am I really saving on a piece of paper, right? So
Right.
we focused on the letters, but one day, and we were sending a lot of letters. We were sending 70,000, 80,000 mailers. Like we did it big. Like
Yeah.
we didn't really like because by that time now we're starting to wholesale. So, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I one time went and talked to a friend of mine who's not doing letters, who's doing cold calling,
Hmm.
and he's like, dude, you're dumb. Like you're doing these letters, you're spending all this money on letters. I don't spend even a fraction of what you spend on letters, and I'm getting the same amount of deals. And he got my attention. I was like, how do you do that? And he's like, well,
Yeah.
I do it through skip tracing. I find their cell phones and I call them. And when I got him on the phone, that's even easier because we just go and tell them about the property and we want to buy it right away. And I was like, okay, and how much does it cost to do that? And he said, well, a call caller at the time was like, I don't know, $800 a month. A call
Yeah.
caller is $800, and then a call caller can do X amount of calls a day, and then the skip trace is like 15 cents, which was very expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And I said 15 cents. So if I pull 10,000 records, that means that's $1,500 on the data
Yep.
plus $800 for, let's say it's double of that because I need
Yeah.
two call callers. That's $3,000 as opposed to 7 or 8,000 on letters
Yeah.
because it's about 80 cents a letter, right?
Hmm.
And now my cost was probably a little lower because I was a mail house. The postage is not what it is today. It was a lot less,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give this a try. But I didn't hire cold callers. What I did is I made my acquisitions managers, because we had two of those,
Yeah.
make calls, and they were impressed on how many people we were getting to talk to and how many
Yeah.
appointments we were pulling. And brother, that was the last time I sent a letter.
Oh, okay.
I never sent a letter ever again.
Yeah.
And then we went from cold calling to texting. And the
Yeah.
texting was even much better. Of course, today the regulations they kind of killed it.
Yeah.
But I still remember in 2018 when I first had 10 properties under contract for wholesale, and we had over $100,000 on assignment. It was more. It was like 150,000 on assignment, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, I can make this every month if I just wholesale and keep a deal flow of this kind moving. And the answer was yes. And we needed to make 250 a month to cover for the interest that we had with the flips that were all over the place because Harvey had killed us. So we quickly started turning the knob up, and like we needed to make that kind of money to survive. It wasn't to thrive and make money and retire. We
Yeah.
needed to survive. We were in survival mode.
Wow.
And yeah, because we had 47 flips when Harvey came to Houston. So
Wow.
it was a mess. I lived all the nightmares a real estate investor can go through. So
Yeah. Holy cow.
yeah, it wasn't good. Um, so that's how I got into that. And now for you, like when was the first time you had maybe a bunch of deals under contract that you're looking at and you're like, oh my god, what is this? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even make this in 1 year, and I can pull it in maybe in 30 to 60 days or 90 days.
Yeah. It sneaks up on you, and I'll tell you, just for the audience, really is you went into to cold calling and thrived. We actually did try cold calling with like VAs and stuff like that. What we found and what everyone I think needs to hear is that it's not for everybody. Your marketing strategy has to fit the way your business runs and the way you are going to manage your business. So I was not a good cold call manager because you got to stay on it, you got to stay active, you got to go. Where because I was just used to mail goes out, phone rings, I just answer it and I do my thing. Me trying to teach and manage those cold callers, it was a bad fit. So we've tried it. We tried texting and tried it again, and it's never fit for us. And I think that's important for people to understand that just because postcards don't work for you doesn't mean you can't try something else, or that maybe texting or
Oh,
calling
don't get me
doesn't
wrong.
work for
Letters
you.
and postcards were working for me perfectly.
Yeah,
The
but
problem was now I'm like, hold on, I'm spending per 10,000 records on a letter. I'm going 7 to 8 grand. I'm down to three now.
yeah, which is
No,
great.
this is a no brainer. I'm gonna make this work because I'm
Yeah.
like saving 4 or 5 grand on a marketing campaign, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so whatever fits, your business, and I don't like seeing people try one thing and it not work, and then they give up, right? Because this business, you can find your way. So
Not only that, for mailers, you have to be consistent.
yeah, very
Like
consistent.
a mailer campaign, I got lucky. I'm gonna say I got lucky because I will send a mailer campaign and boom, my phone will ring and I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting deals.
Yeah,
That doesn't happen today, brother. Now today you gotta send it over a period of 4, 5, 6, 7 months
yeah,
until that deal pays out.
yeah. Well, yeah. Let me go back to your question, which was, when did we figure this, or look back and say, man, this thing works? And I'll tell you, I don't remember doing it. I don't remember doing it at the time, but I do remember reviewing the year and looking. And this was the very first year, like, I was introduced to wholesaling, brand new at the gate, and we did 350-ish thousand dollars in assignment fees that first year. And we also flipped houses, kind of, like, we were still doing flipping and buying rentals. So to get $350 in my salary that I was trying to replace was right at 100. I was like 95. And so to get 350, we had one employee, one assistant, me and my wife. That was like, it blew me away. And we didn't set out to make a whole bunch of money with the wholesaling. It was, again, I'm just replacing my income. After that is when we said, I think there's something here, guys. We need to really pay attention to this, and not waste the opportunity, and put some of our energy and the gifts that we've been given to work, and serve the community with it. Like, serve the people that need help selling houses. We found so many people that had no other option or didn't know what their options were, and we were able to help them through this business. And that was, again, another side effect that we just didn't see coming. And so, yeah, that first year after review of that, and then we said, all right, we got something here, and put a business together around it.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people that are not in real estate or don't understand what we do, when I tell them what I do, when it comes regarding to property acquisitions, right?
Hmm.
Their question is, so why don't they list it with an agent?
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm not looking for the person that needs to list the property with an agent. I'm looking for the person that needs to have a problem solved.
Yeah.
Those properties either have problems or the people have problems, challenges. So one of the two, but there is a challenge somewhere that needs to be
Hmm.
solved, and that's why
Yeah.
they don't end up in the traditional market, right? Maybe
Right.
they need to sell fast. Maybe they inherited the property. Maybe they need to move. And they don't have another choice but to maybe they're let it go, or they're getting foreclosed on, or they're going to the tax sale. I don't know, but
Yeah.
there is a problem that needs to be solved, and that's where we fit in.
Yeah.
Um, what does what does your business look like today, Andrew?
So I'm glad you brought that part up, because the people that need us, and there's not many people that can actually solve some of these issues. And
Yes.
we could go for hours on the stuff that we're able to help where no one else would even give them time of day. Um, and so today, actually, we don't wholesale at all. We actually quit. I think we're right at 3 years that we stopped, because you may have heard South Carolina passed just last year or so this law that was very clear, spelled out no wholesaling, and it was very clear about what you could and couldn't do with a contract on a piece of property. So we saw that coming, because some of our friends had some letters that said, "Hey, you can't do this," and so we pivoted. We're not doing that anymore. We don't want to mess with that. We want a business that will continue, and we're not going to skirt around the law. So we don't wholesale, we don't assign, we buy everything. And at this point, we are still serving those clients that need help. We just did a house, it's totally gutted. Sheetrock's all gone. The tenant just destroyed everything, and no one else is going to look at this house. And they
Right.
were kind of embarrassed, right? They don't want to show it to anybody. And they call us and we can buy it, right? There's burned houses. There's so many different things. And with this law that takes the word wholesaling and throws it in the trash, basically, which was, it outlines that as getting something under contract for the purpose of assigning the contract and then you go and market that contract to other people. And so that is essentially what wholesaling has always been taught as. And so it has taken wholesalers out of our market, which is actually leaving a void because these same sellers are still there. They still don't want to use the traditional method of an agent, but now they have fewer people calling or sending postcards.
I have three friends. Actually, I have three clients in your market
Oh yeah.
that are thriving.
Yeah.
Why are they thriving? Because
Yeah.
they found a way around.
Yeah.
So they use my services. So I know I'm very familiar with South Carolina. Um, I wholesale in South Carolina. I don't give a shit what everybody says.
Yeah.
I know how to do it.
Yeah.
I know there are people that came up with like the installment method and this and that and like all these other different workarounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the installment method is nothing else but other owner financing. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
essentially is what it looks like, right? But you are right. When all these people are like, oh my god, I can't do this anymore, there are people that are thinking outside of the box. Maybe, hey, taking down the properties and doing whatever you need to do with using private money or where there is a owner financing or whatever, then to push it forward is the way to go around the laws. There you have it.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people that market properties, but they're not really marketing the properties. They're marketing an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I got this property under contract. I'm looking to buy it, and I'm looking for a partner on this deal. Guess what the end buyer says? I'm your partner on the deal, right? So, and that's how that happens, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I'm very familiar, and I do personally target the Carolinas. Now, I don't go to like the metro areas because I don't I don't do that anywhere. Like I like the secondary and the tertiary markets.
I love it. Yeah.
I got less competition there, so that's where I put my money, right? But I'm glad you brought that up because you are right. Wholesaling in South Carolina is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we may call it something else. I'm not wholesaling. I'm in the marketing business, I guess, for looking for partners.
We're
And
deal finders, man. We're looking for deals.
that's right. You're still growing your rental portfolio, but you also told me about property management. Do you have a property management company now,
We
or
Yeah, we do. So we've our portfolio, from kind of the beginning of the 4 to 34, and we always said we kind of wanted to be at about 100 that we owned, and we go up and we go down, but then we kind of sell some stuff, and it just seems to be it's arbitrary, but it's just a nice number. And Michelle and I said when we got there and we were stable, we would bring property management back in house. And so a few years ago, we started looking for that person because we had 3 or 4 managers for that whole portfolio. And a year ago, we found that guy to bring it in house, and so he's got it. It's a whole other company, of course, but he's an awesome property manager. He's got all of our units, and then actively out there managing other people's units as well. So yeah,
amazing,
yeah,
amazing. I was a property manager once, but the way we did it was because we were doing so many rehabs. Anything that happened on the properties, we'll just send our crews to fix it right away. So that's how we managed it. But we didn't really, like, I didn't really promote a property management company to other people because I was okay with dealing with my challenges, but I was not okay with dealing with yours.
yeah,
So I'm
yep,
like, that's a whole different animal. Like when you now take on a client to handle their property for them is a whole different level of service that you have to provide. And I said, you know what, I'm okay with handling my own stuff, but that's because I have a fix and flip company and I have the crews to do it.
yep.
And then rent collection and all that. I got to 100 properties, man, and honestly, when I got there, I I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't. I personally don't like being a landlord.
Yeah, me either.
I don't enjoy that. I do enjoy the benefits of it:
Hmm.
appreciation, depreciation, equity build,
Yeah,
owning assets, and things like that. But I also value my peace of mind, right? So I remember getting phone calls sometimes on a Sunday, and I don't know, a sewage line is going out or something along those lines, and you're like, that is not the call I wanted on a Sunday night, right? So
yeah,
um, because you have a property management company, I guess that's who takes the calls. Is
correct.
Your
I was
property.
never. So remember, I came from hotels, and I was managing four rentals. But our very next purchase, when we started that game, after our first flip, is I bought a 5 unit, and so we went from four to nine, and that was it. I was like, nope, I hated the four. I'm gonna despise the nine, and so we started from property management at that point, and I just coming from hotels, daily guest, the issues, just the toilets, the termites, the whatever, everything that can happen uh, with property management and just the guest and the tenant relationships and stuff. And it's just a lot, right? And not that I don't like people and to communicate with them, but it becomes a lot when you have to manage that and the rest of the business. So, yeah, I quit doing that way back then. And again, we said, hey, at 100 units, you're basically paying for an employee, and if you bring it in house, at least that person's focus is for us as right, like they know us and they get us versus a third party manager that has 20, 30, 40, 50 other owners and we're just one. So that was kind of our the way we looked at that. And so we brought him in. Finally, we looked for about a year, I think, and finally got the guy last year, and we just had his year anniversary actually. So
Congratulations.
yeah.
What so? What's the future for you guys, Andrew? Like, where do you guys see yourself moving forward?
Well, we are continuing to do this business. We do have, we've been blessed with the opportunity to help teach people, and we have events here just about every week in Columbia. So we have a lot of fun with this, and we're growing the pieces of the puzzle. So the property management, our home buying team is still going at it full steam, helping people flip houses, that sort of thing. Our portfolio, again, we kind of got to the 100 and we want to see where that goes. We're leaning towards more multifamily and commercial type properties, and keeping those, right. 10
Less
units plus.
toilets.
Yeah, less stuff like that. And of course, the bigger appreciation, right, and then
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So we're leaning towards those and just continue to drive. My kid, I set the clock with the kids. So my youngest will graduate high school in about 10 years. And so, at that point, we'll figure out where's next. But for the next 10 years, everything is down, gas pedal down, and we're going to keep growing and building this here in Columbia.
How can people get a hold of you?
Probably the best way, you can text me at 803-216-5750. You can actually go to Instagram or Facebook in the Messenger as well. So, and Andrew at dealfindersclub.com. That's my email.
Andrew at dealsfindersclubs.com. Email him if you got questions about maybe you're in the Columbus area and you need a property manager or you need coaching. Hit him up. He's done it all now and he's coaching other people on how to do it. So he's got the experience, which is something that I value the most is the experience and in not only in one lane but in multiple lanes, right? So um, because I'm assuming you're coaching people not only to maybe fix and flip or be a landlord, but in other areas as well of real estate, right? So,
Yeah.
guys, don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe. Andrew, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I
Thanks, Ricardo.
appreciate you. I hope to see you and your wife soon. Don't forget, Attend Growth, Tampa, Florida, June 27th, 28th. Get your tickets now. It's selling out. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thanks, man.